We were told 3 partial meltdowns, don't worry about it. Now we know it was 100% core melt in all 3 reactors.
Japan is, by orders of magnitude, many times worse than Chernobyl. Never in my life did I think that 6 nuclear reactors would be at risk.
Well, TEPCO is like the little Dutch boy. All of a sudden we have cracks in the dike. You put a finger here, you put a finger there, and all of a sudden new leaks start to occur, and they're overwhelmed. Literally making it up as they go along. We're in totally uncharted territories. You get any nuclear engineering book, look at the last chapter, and this scenario is not contained in the last chapter of any nuclear engineering textbook on the planet Earth. So they're making it up as they go along, and we are the guinea pigs for this science experiment that's taking place.
All radiation is damaging. It's cumulative. Each dose you get adds to your risk of getting cancer.
Within days of the Fukushima Daiichi catastrophe beginning, we were getting fallout coming down in rain in the United States, not in insignificant quantities. And also, of course, the seafood, not only does the ocean's currents bring the radioactivity this way, but also the sea life itself, the bluefin tuna, migrated from Japan to North America and carried the radioactive cesium in its flesh over here.
Wow, not a good time to be.
Hey everybody, this is Rex Bear with Leak Project. I wanted to give you this real quick update because I noticed this article today, and this is a pretty big deal. A lot of us think that maybe Fukushima, because it's 6 years ago and the reactors went into meltdown several years ago, that the worst is over. And according to this article on The Guardian, check this out, the radiation levels reached 530 sieverts per hour. If you don't know what that means, because most people don't unless you've researched radiation, that is beyond deadly. That is instantly microwaved. That is literally more than 10 times the amount it would take, in most cases, to kill somebody instantly. Just boom. And this is in one of the 6 reactors that have gone into complete meltdown in the Fukushima area in Japan. This is frightening, you guys. Now, when you look at the other scenarios to that, we have to remember about all of the water that's coming from the Pacific and going back to the Pacific.
Brother Jim reporting here from the Daily Sheeple. Northern Hemisphere potentially in great danger as Fukushima radiation spikes to unimaginable levels. Today's date, fresh off the press. Radiation inside one of the damaged reactors at the Fukushima nuclear power plant has reached an unimaginable level according to experts. Because so much nuclear material from Fukushima escaped into the Pacific Ocean, there are many scientists that believe that it was the worst environmental disaster in human history. But most people in the general population seem to think that since the mainstream media really doesn't talk about it anymore, that everything must be under control. Look at this map. Aren't you glad you don't live over here by Japan? But look at the West Coast. But look at the East Coast. Far different, huh? Unfortunately, that is not true at all. In fact, PBS reported just last year that, quote, it is incorrect to say that Fukushima is under control when levels of radioactivity in the ocean indicate ongoing leaks. And now we have just learned that the radiation level inside reactor 2 is so high that no human could possibly survive being exposed to it. According to the Japan Times, the level of radiation inside the containment vessel of reactor 2 is now estimated to be only 530 sieverts per hour. The radiation level in the containment vessel of reactor 2 at the crippled Fukushima No. 1 power plant has reached a maximum of 530 sieverts per hour, the highest since the triple core meltdown in March 2011. 5 years ago, right? No, 6 years ago, excuse me. Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings Incorporated said. TEPCO said on Thursday that the blazing radiation reading was taken near the entrance to the space just below the pressure vessel, which contains the reactor core. The high figure indicates that some of the melted fuel that escaped the pressure vessel is nearby. It is hard to find the words to convey how serious this is. If you were exposed to a radiation level of just 10 sieverts per hour, that would mean almost certain death. So 530 sieverts per hour is simply off the charts. According to the Guardian, this recent measurement is being described by scientists as unimaginable. The recent reading, described by some, well, we already heard that, is far higher than the previous record of 73 sieverts an hour in that part of the reactor. A single dose of 1 sievert is enough to cause radiation sickness and nausea, because a sievert is a very high level. They have like, I think 2 or 3 levels below that. They're like 1,000th of a sievert. 5 sieverts would kill half those exposed to it within a month, and a single dose of 10 sieverts would prove fatal within weeks. And the really bad news is that there appears to be a 2-meter hole that was created by melted nuclear fuel in the metal grating under the pressure vessel in the reactor's primary containing vessel. The following comes from Bloomberg. New photographs show what may be melted nuclear fuel sitting under one of Japan's wrecked Fukushima reactors, a potential milestone in the search and retrieval of the fuel almost 6 years after it was lost in one of the worst atomic disasters in history. Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings Incorporated, Japan's biggest utility, released images on Monday showing a grate under the Fukushima Daiichi No. 2 reactor covered in black residue. The company, better known as TEPCO, may send in a scorpion-like robot as soon as February to determine the temperature and radioactivity of the residue. If that isn't frightening enough, one Japanese news source is reporting that this melted nuclear fuel has since come in contact with underground water flowing from the mountainside. The melted fuel has since come in contact with underwater or underground water flowing from the mountainside, generating radioactively contaminated water every day. In order to dismantle the reactor, it is necessary to take out the melted fuel, but
Matsu joins us this hour. Yoshi, of course, is with us every Monday along with Dana Durnford, but it's been so hell on wheels lately that we've postponed our Fukushima reports, and actually we've been drifting into more and more of the bigger picture, the political, international geopolitics of this whole thing, and they're crucial. They're really important, and they are intrinsically tied to Fukushima, radiation, our early demise, and many other things that we've been talking about for well over 5. God, you know, Yoshi, it's going to be 6 years.
It's coming up, yeah. It's hard to believe that we've survived this long, particularly myself, you know. And one of the reasons I've been in New Zealand, I went down to New Zealand to try to find the opposite of Japan, you know, place a little bit where I could eat fish, things like that, things I used to do 6 years ago. Yeah. And which I can't do anymore. You know, look around at the seaweed and things, you know, sort of a longing for my homeland, which is basically devastated beyond repair in my lifetime and probably in many lifetimes.
No doubt.
New Zealand was a refreshing break, but as soon as I landed, I was interrogated by customs. There's a thing called Line 4. I was put into Line 4. There was a Russian lady there and some dodgy Chinese businessman, and then they said, wow, we have a whole lot on you. So, you know, I thank them. I really appreciate the fact that you're a follower.
We have a whole lot on you?
Yeah.
That's what they said.
And then, you know, and said, there's a whole lot of stuff on you. And I said, yeah, well, I write a lot for Rents and other shows. And, you know, another place, Japan Times, and, you know, I have a whole background in writing. Well, you know, delving into controversies. So this is in New Zealand, right?
Jeez.
Sheep country. Yeah. But then it turns out I had no idea what's going on. I know, absolutely. I said, I'm just shaking my head, man. What possibly do they think I'm an anthrax terrorist or something? I mean, what possibly could I have done to offend this, nice, peaceful?
You're one of the world's great environmental writers, a true journalist,
all that.
and
This was posted about 4 hours ago, and it's breaking news. Fukushima reactor number 2 pressure vessel breached, rising to unimaginable levels of radiation. This is breaking news, February 4th, 2017, as reported on Japan Times, Forbes magazine, and all the sources are below. This is not old news. Yes, radiation is at its very highest since the 2011 meltdown as a result of an offshore earthquake and tsunami from the Daily Cause. Radiation levels inside a damaged reactor at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station are at their highest since the plant suffered a triple meltdown almost 6 years ago. The facility's operator, Tokyo Electric Power, or TEPCO, said atmospheric readings as high as 530 sieverts an hour had been recorded inside the containment vessel of reactor number 2. Do you realize how high that is? That is, what? The recent reading, described by some experts as unimaginable, is far higher than the previous record of 73 sieverts an hour in that part of the reactor. A single dose of 1 sievert is enough to cause radiation sickness and nausea. 5 sieverts would kill half those exposed to it within a month, and a single dose of 10 sieverts would prove fatal within weeks. TEPCO.
February the 5th, 2017. In the last video, I promised to do an update on Fukushima. Information started coming in 6 days ago on these updates, and we're going to look at some of the images from the underwater robot that can move under the containment vessel, because now they have visual proof that Unit 2 is melted through, and there's massive deposits of this black oily looking substance that they think is the radiation. So we've got tons of this stuff spread out and into the water table underneath this, going into the ocean. We've known it, but now they have visual proof. First, let's look at this from Charles Sturt University. It's radiation doses, and it says 10,000 millisieverts, or millisieverts, which is 10 sieverts, is a short-term and whole-body dose would cause immediate illness, such as nausea and decreased white blood cell count, and death within few weeks. Between 2 and 10 sieverts in short-term dose would cause severe radiation sickness with increasing likelihood that it would be fatal. Now remember this, a lot of times you've seen these doses in the millisieverts, like 10,000, but 2 to 10 is likelihood that it would be fatal. These are short-term doses, so remember that. 1 sievert, or 1,000 millisieverts, in a short-term dose is about the threshold for causing immediate radiation sickness in a person of average physical attributes, but would be unlikely to cause death, but it would lead to a higher risk of ongoing cancer. And you can pause this and look at it. One thing, 50 millisieverts is conservatively the lowest dosage which there's any evidence of cancer being caused in adults. It's also the highest dose which is allowed by regulation in any 1 year of occupational exposure. Doses greater than the 50, again, millisieverts arise from natural background levels in several parts of the world, but do not cause any signs of harm. Now, what they're doing under reactor 2, with this robot that you're looking at, they're getting 530 sieverts per hour, not 1 or 2. But this breaks the records, guys, that when it happened, they were getting around 300 that they could measure after the tsunami came in and you had the meltdown. But we'll look at a couple of images, and it happened quick that day. There was a major explosion when they lost power because of the tsunami and earthquake, and everything overheated. They're saying that it has melted through the grating, and these tons, and I mean tons of radioactive material are scattered throughout and again into the underground water. It says the searing radiation level was described as unimaginable, far exceeds the previous high of 73 sieverts measured there before, and again they had not been able to get up under it. It said it would render operations inoperable in less than 2 hours. Any robots or anything like that would burn out, not humans. They couldn't take it, the exposure, period. But these robots that are set in here can go for about 10 hours. But at this one, it said in less than 2 hours, it would be inoperable. The radiation would destroy it. It says the black masses deposited on the grating directly under the pressure vessel. Says it was captured using a camera to a telescopic arm on that day. It says showed parts of the grating were missing. Further analysis found the 2-meter hole in an area beyond the missing section of the structure. Through the vessel, through the grating. If the deposits are confirmed to be melted fuel, it would be the first time the utility has found any of it at the 3 reactors that suffered core meltdowns. It has been a mess since day one. It says they plan to send a robot in again March 1st, while its survey plan for Reactor 2 remains unclear because of the high radiation levels. And they're admitting, guys, that they have not developed the technology yet to clean this up. We've seen it for years. We've seen the impact on the West Coast, and we have seen the denial from mainstream. Maybe with the new president. He's got his hands full right now, but this needs to get very close to the top of the list. And forget about the fake global warming. And let's look at this. As the Commerce Secretary, Penny Pritzker, today determined there are commercial fishery failures for 9 salmon and crab fisheries in Alaska, California, and Washington. Timestamp January 18th. It was updated on the 19th. But the reason she's doing is because it affects so many people's livelihood that they can declare for federal assistance in this case. And so at least they're stepping up there. Now, what they're saying is due to unusual ocean and climate conditions. But
it's no accident you're listening to the One Cell, One Light Radio Network, featuring Dr. Hildegard Steininger. Join Dr. Hildy and her guests as they discuss a variety of art, science, and medicine, all coming up on the Dr. Hildy Show, and it all starts right now. Here's Dr. Hildy.
And today's special guest is Mark the Arcturian, my returning guest. So welcome, Mark the Arcturian.
This world's very clever. It has a mind of its own. The Matrix will suck you in. While we're listening to Pandora on our smartphone, meanwhile checking Facebook on our iPad, and looking for the next American Idol to idolatrize, and in the other window looking at the latest pet yawning video, we won't see it coming. Listen, Dr. Hildy, you and I know that, 500, maybe 1,000 people will hear this live or on a podcast. But right. The latest pet yawning video gets 6 million views. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're in a dream state. They
are in a dream state, and it's a free will, it's free choice. They've chosen this world.
Yes.
And time is almost up. People want proof. Pretty soon, they will have all the proof they need. Unfortunately, it'll be a day too late. There will come a day in the all too near future where you won't even have one more day to choose. I believe I mentioned it last time. I'm going to say it again this time. If you're listening to this broadcast anywhere on the west coast of North America, from Canada to Baja, you should have been long gone by now. How far? You couldn't get me to live anywhere within 200 miles full of any coast, especially the west coast. That includes you, Hildy.
Oh, I know.
Doctor. Mm-hmm. But there's something else we haven't mentioned. Fukushima. Ho ho! I made a picture which will later be up on the slideshow, which was a kitchen match. Just a simple kitchen match lit up, and it says Chernobyl. And next to that is a picture from Star Wars of the Death Star, and it says Fukushima. In other words, next to Fukushima, Chernobyl is a match.
Right, it is.
The stats are not good. Some people have heard of the squid that washed up on a 12-mile strand of Santa Cruz. Thousands of squid beached themselves on this 12-mile stretch in Santa Cruz, California last week. Okay? People go, yeah, I heard about that. But that's that. They don't know the big news, and you see this all over, the starfish. Thank God ABC finally picked this up. The starfish up and down the West Coast, from Canada to California, starfish are turning into this white goo. And they don't know why, or at least, okay, they're not copping to why. I can tell you why, and you can tell you why. Also, jellyfish are also manifesting this disintegrating disease.
Right. Basically radiation poisoning, yes.
Absolutely. Now they're saying, oh, we can't imagine what it could be. Don't even talk about the hundreds of thousands of sardines, anchovies, whichever they were, that floated up in Redondo Beach the other day. The killer whales, orcas, off the Pacific coast, they're not sure why they have a high die-off rate right now. Really? Okay, so the numbers are not good. Fukushima to this day continues to spew 400 tons of irradiated groundwater into the Pacific every day for the last 3 years. That's 1,000 days. Okay, 800,000 pounds of irradiated water per day for 1,000 days. That's 80 million pounds of irradiated water. I just want you to remember, no matter what we say, it's not as bad as you think. It's already far worse. Listen, far worse than you could possibly imagine. salmon, sockeye salmon, which float right into Alaska. Now, who's closer to Fukushima, Alaska or you? Alaska. They had to close down one of the rivers, and the sockeye salmon harvest is looking like it's going to be less than half of usual. All the way in Maine, which may or may not be related, they have shut down the shrimp season for 2014. Just shut it down. Listen, they've been studying for 24 years the ocean floor. And instead of 1 to 2%, 98%. Listen, 98% of the Pacific Ocean floor is littered with dead creatures. Along with the starfish disintegrating and the jellyfish, the squid, every bluefin tuna tested in the Pacific Ocean is inedible due to radiation. This is all within the 3 years since Fukushima, and I don't know whose eyes they want to pull the wool over that they're not related. Before March of 2011, they didn't ban them for radiation, didn't use Geiger counters in their supermarkets. But see, the smoke screen that media is using is really effective, Dr. Hildy. It just amazes me how many people are belligerent, oblivious, want to stick their head in the sand. Maybe it'll go away. No, it won't. This is not going. Even if ISON doesn't give us any dust, even if our economy stays strong, even if we don't have a worldwide pandemic, Fukushima is here for generations to come.
Right, and it is generations to come. Even what has happened between Texas to Colorado, where you're at, they've even given alerts, don't eat the snow because it's fluorescing.
Now, I was way up in near Vail 2 weeks ago, and the snow was just sitting there on the like almost a foot. And I licked this snow, and I spit it out, and I said, this is not right. This does not taste like snow. And then here comes this report. Texas, St. Louis, Colorado, and 2 other United States have high levels of radiation in the snow. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard of a potential, they've whispered that the whole west coast of North America may have to be evacuated.
Yes.
Have you heard this?
Yes.
Just a whisper on ABC News should be enough. I believe I mentioned it last time. I'm going to say it again this time. If you're listening to this broadcast anywhere on the west coast of North America, from Canada to Baja, you should have been long gone by now. You know, I tell people I left California before it falls in the water. But how do I get all my friends and family and everyone else to leave California before it falls in the water? I couldn't do it. I had a poster once where I was doing a 2012 lecture, and I up and down the coast, and it said,
has the whole world and all scientists silenced on the actual truth about this worldwide nuclear event. We get lies after lies and cover-ups through the mainstream media, so the majority of the people worldwide have no idea about Fukushima's ongoing deadly release of lethal, man-made, weapons-grade radiation. They deny that it even happened. They say it is anything else other than radiation causing our illnesses and cancers. They blame it on cigarettes, alcohol, asbestos, all the things they have been blaming over the years. But these things are becoming less and less in the world. Less people are smoking. Asbestos is being removed from existence. Alcohol use is about the same. So how could they be to blame for the acceleration and now higher statistics in cancer rates, heart attacks, and birth deformities worldwide.
1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer.
You are being lied to, and they are laughing at you as you follow along with and believe in their lies. Einstein once said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." Try asking someone you work with if they know the current news on Fukushima, and most will give you a blank look saying something like, "What is Fukushima? Never heard of it." Or if they do know about it, their reply will be something like, "Oh yeah, that happened a few years ago. Those poor people over there." The news media has the world living in a false, numb, and dangerous fantasy. And the people don't want you to rip them out of that imaginary world they live in. Those of us that do speak the truth are labeled conspiracy theorists. But this is not a conspiracy, folks. I'm sorry to tell you. This is the
simply too dangerous for humans to go, and this is what it uncovered inside one of the reactors of Japan's crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. It's a stream of highly radioactive water in one of the buildings. The video was released by the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO. The stream of water flowing across the floor runs into the building's basement from number 3 reactor. That's one of the reactors that melted down in the aftermath of Japan's 2011 earthquake and tsunami. The water was found to have high levels of radioactive cesium and cobalt. The levels were far higher than what's allowed to be dumped into the ocean, but TEPCO says none of this water has leaked out of the building itself. TEPCO and Japanese media have said there's a chance the water is flowing from holes in the reactor itself, which has melted fuel rods in it. They don't know how much water's leaked out, nor when the leak itself began.
And unprecedented. Officials state that damages at the reactor are far worse than previously thought. Melted fuel has come in contact with underground water, and melted core appears spread out over an extensive area. A gaping hole has been found under the containment vessel measuring 2 meters in diameter on a metal grating. Images captured using a camera attached to a telescopic arm on Monday also showed part of the grating has gone. A further analysis of the images also found a 2-meter hole in an area beyond the missing section on the structure. Radiation levels at the Fukushima reactor have soared to their highest levels since the 2011 disaster. The radiation levels inside the containment vessel of the number 2 reactor at the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear complex stood at 530 sieverts per hour, the highest ever, the plant operator said on Thursday. Previously, the highest radiation level monitored in the interior of the reactor was 73 sieverts per hour. The new radiation level has been described by some experts as unimaginable. And it far exceeds 73 sieverts per hour, the previously highest radiation reading in the interior of the reactor. An official of the National Institute of Radiological Sciences said professionals have never even considered dealing with this level of radiation in their work. TEPCO said the blazing radiation reading was taken near the entrance area in the space just below the pressure vessel, which contains the reactor core. These are record-high fatal radiation levels, according to the institute. Just 4 sieverts of radiation exposure would kill 1 out of 2 people. Experts say 1,000 millisieverts, which equals 1 sievert, could lead to infertility, loss of hair and cataracts, while exposure to higher radiation doses increases the risk of cancer. Another truly unsettling revelation about the Fukushima problem came as a boss revealed that 600 tons of fuel melted, and they can't find it. One top official said, "Nobody really knows where the fuel is. We may never be able to get it and we'll have to just leave it wherever." Uncontrollable fission is continuing under the site. TEPCO in the past had hoped to remove the fuel debris as part of decommissioning work at the plant. The government and TEPCO previously had plans to locate the fuel and start removing it from a first reactor in 2021. They had thought that it would be possible to decommission the plant within the next 30 to 50 years, an optimistic timeline according to many. These new developments make that inconceivable. With the reactor cores missing, decommissioning the plant or any kind of containment becomes impossible. Radiation levels at Fukushima are so high that they are melting robot camera probes sent into the reactors. Approximately 400 tons of water flows into the reactor every day, and approximately 300 tons of contaminated water flows out of it and into the ocean daily. TEPCO initially ignored requests to not allow the contaminated water to flow into the ocean. They did later build an ice wall around the reactors in an attempt to contain the flow, but that attempt failed as the ice wall melted. Several years ago they admitted to initially covering up the magnitude of the disaster and stated that their cover-up and refusal to acknowledge the meltdowns was regrettable. We can only imagine what they are not disclosing now. Their management of the disaster has been a disaster in and of itself. Cesium-137 is a product of nuclear fission. Prior to humans, there was no Cesium-137 on Earth. Once we developed and detonated nuclear bombs, we introduced Cesium-137 into the environment. There are now detectable levels of Cesium-137 in all of the world oceans. This is by far the worst nuclear disaster to ever occur on Earth. With no end in sight, uncontrollable fissioning will continue for years to come. We have only just begun to see some of the effects on marine animals as the Pacific Ocean dies and our other oceans are contaminated. Mutant flowers and vegetables are now common in and around the Fukushima area. It will get worse as time goes on. Fukushima was an apocalypse. The beginning of the end. Not an instantaneous apocalypse, but one that will play out over a longer period of time. We can only hope that in the future some solution will appear. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe.
Now, Anthony Gucciardi's here with huge Monsanto news, but first, this story came out a few days ago, and we mentioned it. We have the clip. We're going to play it in a moment. If you just joined us, by the man voted most popular, the man of Canada, David Suzuki, has gone on record, and then he mentioned in the papers, in the reports, we've dug these up because we've covered these. These are scientific reports, what scientists have said, the probability of an earthquake, and what it'll do if there's full meltdown of the fuel rods stored there. And the ground's all spongy and eroding into a huge sinkhole, and another tsunami, a 7.2 earthquake. It's over. And it just shows the insanity of the power structure. And now they're getting ready to start removing the fuel rods. That, statistically, they believe will probably cause them to bang together and catch on fire. And then you've got a full meltdown on your hands. Anthony Gucciardi, who's really our expert on Fukushima, covering the latest information, joins us in studio to talk about the madness of these people. His article is the top story on Infowars.com right now. Anthony, tell us the situation.
Well, you notice how they craft the debate. Now it's about the TSA agent and should they be armed. Meanwhile, we have top generals saying, yes, the nuclear weapons are, they're missing, and we have major problems. Obama is getting rid of all of the top guys who will not listen to him and play ball. And now we have this scientist, this internationally recognized scientist. He hosts his own television show, actually. And yes, he was the #5 guy in Canada, the #1 living man in Canada, the most popular, had the most votes. Everyone loves him. And he went to this forum, and thankfully someone captured it with their iPhone, or else we would never know. And he was alerting them, kind of like a behind-the-scenes deal, saying, listen, this is about water ecology, this conference, this symposium, but the real thing is Fukushima. And he was saying if just one more earthquake, 7.0 or higher, happens, and he said there's a 95% chance that it will happen over the next 3 years, then Fukushima would just absolutely melt down, and the U.S. would have to be evacuated, and then that Japan would go, quote-unquote, bye-bye. So he's basically saying everyone in Japan would die.
And he's a physicist and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, and it's not like we're saying this or we're making this up. This is a direct quote. He's saying there's a 95% chance this will happen in the next 3 years if we don't do something about it.
And I agree with that because that's our own analysis from Dr. Busby and other top folks we've had on. We either, I mean, there should be 50,000 people there in radiation suits, rotating in and out in lead suits in a world emergency to clean that out right now. Instead, I've read that they can't get workers to go in. The starfish are melting and dying. The butterflies are dying and are mutated. The kids are dropping dead. People are staying there to take care of their horses and livestock. They're dying. And the answer is just let it happen.
No, there's still plenty of people living in the Fukushima region.
Well, Ann Coulter says they should be thankful.
No, they should be. No, that whole idea is that if you have a little bit of radiation, you get immunized like a vaccine. But no, the concept here is that TEPCO is now going in.
Are you racist against radiation?
I'm absolutely racist against radiation. I don't want to take Ann Coulter radiation pills, but maybe we should start promoting that. So I think the key thing here is they call it the TEPCO Mafia now because they're just so bad at what they do. They're either incompetent or nefarious. No one really knows. I mean, they're taping things up with duct tape at this nuclear plant. It's on life support right now, and they're taping it up with duct tape. But what's going on is the United States is moving in with some scientists, some little guys to go maybe help with the Fukushima disaster that could potentially blow up and, you know, he says cause the U.S. to evacuate. But they're going in and they're going to test the reactor 4, extracting some fuel rods because they said that one was actually not melted down. The other ones have volatile, toxic elements